Yes.
That's why. Okay, we are live. We could start anytime.
Okay, well, I will call to order the City of LeGrand Landmarks Commission regular session for Thursday, June 12th, 2025. Mike, may we have the roll call, please?
Yeah, Tracy?
Here.
Cassie?
Here.
Rod?
Here.
And then Katie is absent excused.
Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda tonight?
We don't.
Okay. First item is consent agenda for approving the minutes of our last meeting, which was December 12th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, we'll move on to public comments. This is for the section for public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any public comment on non-agenda items tonight? Okay, hearing none. We'll go ahead and move on to new business, which is, first item is electing the chair and the vice chair. Welcome, come on in.
Thank you.
Come on over.
You guys are welcome to have a pack if you don't already have one.
Coolio.
Okay, so Mike, for the yearly chair and vice chair, remind me what we need to do there?
Yeah, one of you just needs to nominate somebody and second it, and then and then pick a vice chair, and you can even just agree and then just do a nomination for both and a second and vote for both if you want to do it. It can be pretty informal.
Okay.
So I can make a motion for Cassie to be chair.
If you would like, if she's willing to accept, yeah.
Are you willing to accept?
I am willing to accept, but at some point I need to hand off. Okay, well then I nominate Tracy to be vice chair. Can I nominate? I don't know.
No, you can. That's legit.
Okay. Well then, do I have a motion to approve or to suggest Cassie as chair and Tracy as vice chair?
Yes. Fine. Motion approved.
Rod makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So let's move on to our next business item, which is the selection of a historic preservation consultant for the Grande Carnegie Library nomination for the National Register of Historic Places. So we'll have a couple of steps we'll go through here. So first, do we have any commissioner declarations or challenges regarding this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to staff report.
Okay, so this is a project that I think stems back a number of years back when we did our educational event at the Carnegie Library. I don't know how many years ago that was now. Was it like 8 years ago? But anyway.
It was 2020.
Okay.
Oh.
It was early March.
I was right with you.
Hey, I'm only off 3 years.
I remember it was early March of 2020.
2020 was a long year though.
Yeah.
And that might be the last time
And
you've
it
been in the building.
And it got longer after that.
Yeah. We planned a long time.
So anyway, so during that event, we had a number of workshops, in the downtown and at the library that essentially identified, related to the Carnegie Library, a number of deteriorating elements that stem back probably even before the city owned the building, but certainly, mostly while the city owned it as far as deferred maintenance. So we're dealing with bricks, potentially some historic window repair related stuff. I don't know what the roof condition, I think at the time, I can't remember if the roof was one of those, but there were just a number of items that were identified as, and at some point they're gonna need some level of maintenance.
Can we
repair.
interject on this part?
No,
or
not yet.
Just staff.
Yeah, we're going to do staff report and then public testimony goes next.
Yeah. So anyway, so there was a number of items that were just identified as candidates that would need some level of work at some point. And since it's a city-owned building and the Arts East was a tenant, and really didn't have the financial resources to do a lot of these things. At least some of us felt the city had a responsibility to do some of this maintenance, even though it's not necessarily associated directly with the contract. I think the contract is Arts East does the maintenance and the utilities and everything, but anyway, yeah. So part of that is how do we make this more cost effective for doing this work? And one of the options is to get the building listed on the National Register so we can qualify for some grant funding for work, because this is one of those types of buildings that a lot of times there's earmarked money for these, for this type of work. And so it's taken a while, but the council, when the Landmarks Commission presented it to the council was like, it's not listed already. So that was essentially the answer I got. And I was like, well, no, well, why not? We got to do that.
That was my thought.
Yeah, so anyway, and that's pretty much been everybody. As soon as you put it out there to anybody who's in the historic project, it's like, it's not already listed. And so anyway, so that's the effort that we're going through so that we can essentially qualify for some additional grant money. So the fundraising efforts that you guys have done can be used, as well as, what we would hope the city council will, add and contribute, can be used as a match for a significant grant to not only do the project that is planned, for ADA accessibility, but maybe there's some other things that down the road that we may want to do. And I would hope that the city would be supportive of, helping to match, future projects. If there's a window restoration piece or there's some kind of brickwork, I know there's cracks in the walls that, at least on the outside, that we've looked at, if there's whatever that repair is, and if the roof needs to be done, or if there's gutters and drainage. Anyway, those are all things that would be eligible repair things. There's also, what we call them, viability things for the use of the building. So there's things like heating and cooling and electrical and plumbing, and there's all kinds of stuff that, are eligible historic preservation expenses. And so anyway, once we get the building listed, then at least we have other funding sources that suddenly folks, may be interested in contributing. I think there's even some private sources out there that may be more favorable, maybe, if it's at least listed. But, so anyway, so that was kind of the start of it. We got a blessing from the council to apply for a grant, and every 2 years, the grant is up for a certified local government grant. Those are only available to essentially cities that have a historic district and a historic landmarks commission. And that's the funding we used for our event that we had at the Carnegie Library. We've used it in years past to do to help match facade grants, where suddenly right now it's a 50-50 program, but we set it up where if we contribute, then it can be thirds in order to make the money stretch farther. So that's how we started the facade grant program a number of years ago. And then we've just had, targeted projects that we've looked at. But last year was actually the year we were eligible to apply. And I think by the time the funding was approved by the council, we missed our grant, application time window. And so this year was pretty much like the third year in the cycle, and it's not competitive. It's pretty much anybody that applies gets it, and then they just divvy up whatever the pot of money is by all the applicants. So it's kind of a guaranteed grant anyway. And we asked for initially $20,000 in total project with a $10,000 grant from the state, and we ended up getting the full grant request. With the understanding that this particular project was not going to cost us the full amount that we thought, as we were estimating high, and so we essentially got this project is identified as a $12,500 project instead of a $20,000 project. And then the rest of that grant is going into kind of a holding pattern for training and other opportunities for the commission or staff to go to either conferences, or we can bring in somebody to do a training on something historic preservation. So let's keep that in mind, as I have the other $7,500 sitting there, that half of it's city, but half of it's the grant that we can bring somebody in. And so if Arts East thinks of something as well, that'd be something maybe to present to the commission, that here's a historic preservation something, and we might be able to kind of help fund somebody to come in and do some educational something anyway. So that's what that money's for. But anyway, so we have a $12,500 project. We put this out to bid, and we received nine proposals. And in your packet, just behind that CAF is kind of this Kendra's summary of the breakdown of the 9. She's got them A through I. And so you can kind of see the amounts. They range anywhere from $9,300 to the full $12,500 for projects. And so as we've considered these, I mean, this is your packet. It's almost 2 reams of paper is the 9 proposals. And so Kendra broke that down into kind of an executive summary for you. And as we kind of were figuring these out and trying to figure out how do we select our consultant? Typically, the city goes with the lowest bidder, and then if that lowest bidder, for whatever reason, is either not qualified, or for some reason you don't feel it's in the city's best interest to pick that bidder, then you go to the next one and kind of do the same analysis, and then you go to the next one until finally you land on one that is kind of the best price, who's going to provide the best service and the best price for the city to meet our needs. And then that's what we would recommend, and that's what the city council hopefully will support and pick. And so what Kendra put together is kind of using some guidance from our public works and how they score stuff, but a lot of it also is from our city manager as we created some review criteria and weighted the criteria. And there's a handout in there for, I'll just jump to it on here, so if you have an interest. I think it's in the packet. I'm not sure if Kendra put that in there or not, but anyway, it's kind of how we scored and what those criteria are. And so we just kind of did a staff evaluation, as this is kind of where we landed. And for the most part, all of the consultants are qualified to do the work. And so then it came down to who scored higher, because we couldn't weed somebody out based on qualifications. And so then it was based on, it's weighted a little heavier for the lowest bid, but then other than that, it's, have you done one of these before? Have you done a library before, or something like very close to this? So then we had a scoring, I think that's, I'm not even sure which one that is at the moment, but anyway, and then we also had one for how much do you know our region, because part of that listing is you need to talk about the history of the building, the history of our community, and there's things that make this building significant that goes into that application. And so anyway, we created this score, and then we've essentially ranked them, and based on that final score and the recommendation that staff has is for the Brunswick historical folks, as they have the lowest bid and scored the highest on our little point rank. So that's our recommendation based on our stuff, and ideally our desire, which we didn't make it very clear in our packet to you, was we were hoping that you would have time to kind of go through and do your own little scoring to see if you agree with us, and then ultimately you're asked to make a pick one, do a vote, and hopefully by consensus we'll recommend this to the city council, and I'll take it to them in July, and they will select a consultant, and then we'll move forward with with getting into contracts and trying to get a schedule for getting this work done.
Maybe just a couple of clarifications on the staff report. Who all was on the staff evaluation committee?
For this would be Kendra and myself. It was mostly Kendra, because I kind of gave this to her. This is kind of her project, so so I kind of evaluated them to some extent, just kind of looked over her shoulder, but it's predominantly Kendra.
So, is there this lowballing is from California, and we've got the next best is from Oregon, correct?
Yeah, the next one
White
is,
salmon, but
Yeah, Inland Northwest Cultural.
No.
No, the next one, the next one, because if you go down the right column, then you go to the one that's got, the next highest score is 70, which is Pacific Preservation.
Okay,
So that's the next highest scoring, not.
that's the highest score.
Yeah, and so we're not necessarily recommending that you pick based on price, we're recommending that you pick based on score.
Right.
And it just happens that the highest score is the lowest price, but
Right.
once you get past this one, then they start deviating in order.
Right. Would there be better accountability for a local consultant registered in Oregon with an Oregon licensure?
I don't know if that matters for this kind of project. I don't think that, and part of it also, as you look at the proposals, and it's only because we know some inside stuff, is some of these folks, even though they're not here, they either have family here, they travel here a lot, they do other things in this area for other business, and so,
Right.
and so I wouldn't want to read into it, especially on the accountability side. I think that they're on the hook to do the work, and they don't get paid until it's done,
Right.
so it's,
Right.
based on how we deal with the contract piece, so you get paid as you complete work, so it's not, I think the accountability will take care of itself.
Yeah, I caught that in the bio. At least that was part of their discussion,
Yeah.
so I did notice that.
Okay, well, before we move on to any discussion on our end, do we have any other just clarification questions from Mike? Okay, well, I would like to move on to public testimony, because we do have some public here tonight, in regards to the proposals. So if I could have any public members that would like to offer comment, first introduce themselves.
Comments can be questions, right? Or no?
Sure.
I'm Darcy Dolch, I'm the Art Center East Executive Director. And of course, we're here because we're the tenants of the building. So just a couple of comments that may help moving forward once all of this gets moving forward, right, which is lovely, is the name Arts East dissolved in 2015.
Oh,
So Art Center East it's Eastern Oregon Regional Arts Council Inc., DBA Art Center East.
will you shoot me an email?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, perfect.
But that may help, cause that's pretty important, our name is important.
Well, it should be important to us too, so let's get it right.
Yeah, and then also something just basic based on the movement forward that you'll do with whoever you hire. We did all the fundraising and we replaced the entire roof in 2015.
That
So-
sounds familiar, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, so all that soffit work that you see that looks like the roof is leaking is just because the soffits need to be reworked, but not because the roof is hurting.
Okay.
Don't know if that helps at all. There's some other questions I think that relate to just general that maybe don't relate exactly to the proposals that you're working with. I would just be curious, if any of these folks, if the city has worked with any of the firms that had proposed before. That's not, I don't need that answer, just a general curiosity. And that's, I think, all I've got, because the rest of it really just doesn't pertain to what you've got on your agenda today. Alright.
Yeah, so I guess just in response to your question, yeah, the Peter Meisher architect is the only one that we have worked with in the past.
Okay, and so that doesn't weigh itself anywhere within the rating, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we didn't include that because we didn't work with them on anything related to this. It was kind of an unrelated type of project.
Okay.
And so that's why I think we talked about having a criteria where we deal with local, but then we were trying to debate what is local, because generally, as we look at it, is it an Oregon person? And so we only have 2 Oregon, folks on this, and then we have a white salmon, which, in a way, is that local, but that's Washington. So we decided that may not be in the context of this. How important is it really, and for this dollar amount? And so we decided not to put a weight on the state. One of the things, just for kind of some background, is how we researched it. There's some state law in Oregon that Public Works uses all the time, but they're dealing with big money projects. But it has to do with they do an artificial inflation of the rate based on some tax or something like that. They don't actually apply it into the project, but they use it for scoring. And so Oregon's law is that we don't add that tax in the scoring process for Oregon unless the other state does, and then we just put what they put in.
Right.
And in this case, out of all of them, all of the states, with the exception of our one high score person, California, I think it's 5% that they add to projects in their scoring. And we figured even if we added 5%, it doesn't change the ranking.
Okay.
And then all of the other ones have the same rule Oregon has. And so if neither of you charge, then it's a wash. So anyway, so we didn't add that the shop local kind of thing. And since our three consultants were, only one of them was truly local, and then the other two were from across the state, is how would you do that, and do we really care for this dollar amount for this type of project? And so we chose not to.
Yeah, you just didn't include it in the RFP as a criteria, so.
Yeah, and that was the other reason why, because we didn't put it in there. But I know our Public Works Department sometimes will give folks credit that if you are, within a region, not so much local like LeGrand, but if you're within, the eastern 5 counties, then you score a little higher than somebody that's
Yeah.
from the west side or from another state or.
But you have to declare that in the
Yeah.
procurement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, well, Darcy, so the floor, if you have other things.
I think my questions don't pertain to the agenda, so.
Okay.
Good. Do you guys? Yeah. Okay.
The only thing I could add is what we discussed when the architects were viewing the veneer itself and the type of work that's in the scope. And I worked on a Carnegie Library in Union, and the state had a lot of requirements that they wanted as prerequisites. They had a lot of special environmental detergents to, clean the brick and preserve the brick. I don't know if that's the case for this library, but they had a coloring in the mortar that permeated the brick. So that could not be removed with any detergents. So that was in the local director's protocol of what would be done. And so they were a little disappointed that it couldn't be completed for obvious reasons. And their grant was running out in a matter of weeks. And I said, I can't complete the scope in a couple weeks anyway, but we can point up every single thing I can see, and I'm glad you did the roof, because that was my focal point. I said, please, let's just take the money and put it towards the roof, because I'm not gonna meet your scope at all. I mean, I'm gonna be able to fix all the downspout decay and head joints, bed joints, archways and such. Okay.
Not that I want to interrupt you, but
Go ahead.
I'm thinking it might be appropriate, because we're just dealing with the listing itself.
Yeah.
And so, but I think that there's a good opportunity at the end of the meeting that we could even adjourn and have conversations.
Yeah, I know,
Because
we're not there.
But I think the fact that
We're
you're
not there.
here, I think it's a good opportunity that we could maybe just even have some dialogue afterwards
That'd
to,
be great.
With our-
you know,
with our local
to answer some
listing, yes.
of your other questions that are unrelated to the
Yeah,
listing itself.
that'd be great, because I don't wanna disrespect the agenda and your time as well, so.
Yeah, sorry, Rod.
I know, we're not, the scope is not even it's not even in today's discussion.
Yeah.
So I got it, yeah.
Do we have any other public comment tonight? Okay. Okay, well, let's go and move then to commission discussion. which I'd like to do just a little bit of that before we put together a motion. So we do have a staff recommendation in front of us with a high score for Brunzell Historical.
It's not gonna say, I still lost it.
So can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So if they came in low on the bid for, let's say, the site visit, because this seems disproportionately low to the other bids, is that just a cost that they would eat, or is that something that would be later made up?
Yeah, so the cost for the bid is a fixed cost. They're proposing to do the entire project for that dollar amount. So if we select them, that is the dollar amount, and if it's low, that's,
On them?
yeah, it's on them. And so, but I would like to think that they have done these enough and they're familiar enough with what their costs are that they submitted a proposal that fits, you know, what they think their expenses are gonna be, plus whatever, you know, they need to make in order to make this pencil for them.
Okay, thank you.
I have the same question, and I looked through that proposal in detail just to make sure there wasn't any, you know, hidden reimbursable expenses, and there did not appear to be.
Yeah, something I wanted to add that was part of the influence on this was some consultants were very clear about the end result, not just creating the proposal and then just giving it to us, and now we have to do something with it. Because I reached out to SHPO and I said, hey, how does this process usually work? And a lot of times the consultant is the one who turns stuff in. SHPO does their review, and sometimes there's a correction, so it goes back to the consultant. And one of the, I think the one that is the Brunzell Historical, I think they offered to do up to 2 revisions and resubmit. And so that's kind of what generated my question, because some of the other ones didn't say how many. It just sounded, the way they presented it was, we're gonna submit it, we're gonna make sure it's successful and you know, everything's done right. And so I interpret that to mean however many times it goes back and forth until you get it right. But they had 2, and so I called SHPO and they said, we rarely have, especially on a project like this, most folks, usually it's 1 revision and you're done. So 2 revisions sounded very reasonable, and so, and then we had a couple that, you know, we're gonna submit the information to the city, and it's kind of like, yeah, that's not a complete project.
Okay. Actually, I do have another question. Did staff happen to check any of the references on the top score?
We did not.
Okay.
And explain the tax thing to me again. There's a, California tax is 5%.
That's not on here.
No.
That's not on here,
That's
because we chose to not do that, because it didn't really apply to anybody, or it only applied to the one person, but it was 5%, but if you added 5% to the 9,300, you're still the low score. You're still the low bidder. And so,
Close, but you're,
yeah, it's close, but you're still the
More
low bidder.
close.
So it
And
wouldn't
that's the
have-
30-pointer.
it wouldn't have changed a whole lot, and so we decided to kind of keep that out.
Right.
So, because really you're penalizing one person, but then you have 8 people that aren't getting penalized, and it's really not a fair.
How would that calculate?
Well,
If the California firm and they said,
They don't get paid the extra 5%. It's just their bid just gets inflated 5% for scoring purposes only.
well, no, they don't get paid the 5%. Would they calculate the 5%?
No, it's in the scoring. It doesn't change the fee.
Yeah, it's only in the score.
Yeah,
So it doesn't change the cost score?
No.
Correct.
I mean, it'll change the number on this chart for our purposes only,
Yeah.
but we still go back to the 9,300 for what you're gonna contract with if they were successful.
Right, okay. Because I'm taking 5% of that total number and I'm saying,
I mean,
If
you're only
there's some-
adding,
if
you're
there's
adding
something
four,
like
you're
this-
adding $400, $400 and some dollars to it.
right, right, there's something, yeah, if there's something I can say, well, $400 puts us outside.
I mean, you're still the low bidder. So anyway, it didn't change any of it didn't influence anything, so we chose to not use it.
Yeah.
Because it just mucks it up, and then now we'd have this conversation. of,
Right, right.
Aren't you right with that number?
That's the conversation. Yeah,
So we were purposely trying to avoid that.
right.
Okay, well, do I have any motion?
Looks good to me. I'll say yes. Do I have a second? Can I do that?
Are you
No.
making a motion to?
Am I making a motion to approve?
Here,
I can do
Yeah.
that.
here's your suggested motion, and I think
Okay.
you have to, the name's already in there for the recommendation.
I move that the Brunzo Historical be selected for the successful bidder of the recommended and for the bidder for the recommended to the city council for approval. Do I say it?
Okay. Do I have
I'll
a
second that.
second?
And a second?
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, a second, sorry. Yes.
Okay, I would like to request that staff check references on our high score prior to the recommendation to the city.
Or if you don't mind, I'm just trying to think, prior to the city council
Prior to the
receiving
city-
your recommendation.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that concludes that agenda item. We have no items for public hearing, we have no items for business. Do we have any city planner comments?
I don't have anything of substance today. We do have, Call for Projects has a number of things going on. And I'm expecting any day, probably Monday, because Kendra's on vacation this week. But Valley Insurance is doing some new signage. They're gonna get their banner off the building. And they would like, I think just based on the sign company's recommendation and what they've seen elsewhere that the commission has approved, I think they're looking at doing a halo sign. So anyway, yes, they're in the process of working with Kendra to figure out what does that submittal requirement look like, so you'll probably see that in July.
Okay, looking
So-
forward to seeing it.
Yeah, because they're chomping at the bit to at least get their sign company to at least order it,
Yeah.
order their stuff, so they can get a new sign right away. And then there's a number of other call for projects that the council still has to go through their process, but those will be coming your direction in the near future, so some of them will.
Okay, anything else?
That's all.
Okay, on to commission comments. I've got a few, unless, will you two go first?
I have a request for the July meeting. If I have to go to Texas again to check on my parents.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it possible for us to Zoom that meeting if it overlaps with my trip?
Yeah, just email either Kendra or myself the dates, and we do Zoom every single time for, at least for the recording. And so I'll just make sure to get you a link. Or if you have a link from one of the last meetings, I don't know if I might have changed them all since it's a new year, so.
If it falls
But-
in that time period,
But either way, just send us an email, let us know when you're gonna be gone, and then I'll make sure you get the link so that we can pull you in if you're available.
okay, thank you.
What date does that meeting fall on?
I don't know.
It
The
is-
July, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's
July,
10th.
yeah,
Oh, I'll be here.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because the second is a Wednesday, so.
Yeah, I should be here too.
Never mind.
Okay,
Okay.
so just a reminder, on next Thursday, June 19th, we have the Landmarks Main Street Joint Training, which is gonna be here at City Hall, and Mike, that's Juneteenth, the holiday that's still on? Question mark?
Well, I think we could reschedule, I mean, I didn't schedule it, but
Okay. I mean,
if-
I'm good with it.
it's not a holiday for the city.
Okay.
Okay,
And
okay.
so that's probably why we didn't think about it, but
Okay.
if it's a holiday for other folks and you don't, and you wanna reschedule,
I
and,
won't.
and let me
Fine by
just,
me.
but before we move on to that,
Mhm.
there is, some shift in, Main Street Board, I think it's Main Street Board or some anyway, there's some Main Street people shifting around and they're no longer there. And so they're not entirely, I think, functional. Maybe just to be simple. But, so
Okay.
Timothy's kind of working through that, so we may reschedule anyway,
Okay.
because if they're in the process of getting new people engaged,
Yeah, why do a joint training
Yeah,
if there's
we're
only one side?
right, we're gonna do joint training with whoever the new people are that are taking over the vacancies.
Okay.
Yeah, cause I won't be there 17 for probably a few days.
Yeah, so anyway, so you'll hear from Kendra early next week once Timothy kind of commits. I think they had some meeting coming up and it might be tomorrow, but he didn't want to schedule or reschedule or cancel without talking to them first, so I think you'll probably hear something, maybe even direct from me or directly from Timothy, either tomorrow or also it'll be from Kendra on Monday, but that's my hope. And then you'll know whether or not to show up Thursday.
Right.
Sounds good. Okay, my next item is that the 2025 Main Street grants were announced. This is the big one that they do every year. And we did have one awardee from the grant, which was the where State Farm is now on Chestnut Street, the auto building, and it got a $400,000 grant
Nice.
award.
I do remember Timothy mentioning something about that.
And the description is rehabilitate 216 Chestnut Street as a mixed commercial space in the grant.
Yeah, do you want to know a little more about that project,
Sure.
or do you already know?
I wouldn't mind, no, that's not the winery, the
Okay.
winery's the twin building across the
So
street.
this is the EO&I building?
Yes.
That's just on the other corner over here? Anyway, so, the plan is that the EO&I office space is gonna stay office space. And then the interior, what used to be the shop with, I'm trying to think, there's a number of uses that have been in there, but the shop is, being converted partially to a commercial kitchen. And then part of that space will be, a number of like little, walk-in coolers, dry storage and a number of things, and then outside there's gonna be, I think they have spot for 4 or 5 vendors, like little food vendors. And the space inside, the storage areas are gonna be theirs, so they're gonna have their trailer space. And then the inside is where they're gonna store all their stuff, and the commercial kitchen is where they can do all their prep stuff, so they're not trying to do it in the trailer.
Nice.
And so anyway, and then the commercial kitchen then will also be available to the community, whoever needs commercial kitchen space. Anyway, and so they got a Main Street grant, or not, well, they got that grant, but then they have not Main Street, they have an urban renewal call for project grant as well. That's, hasn't been approved yet, but it's very likely to get funded. So anyway, and I know that Associated Design across the street has a site plan all put together, so they're getting ready to submit that. So that's very likely gonna move forward. I don't know how long it's gonna take, but that's an exciting project, and they've already done some stuff in preparation for it, and taking that giant fence wall down. Because the intent is that it's gonna interact and be kind of an extension of Max Square, even though it's private. So it's gonna be pretty exciting once they get that going, so.
Right.
Anyway, that's what that project is.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Oh, and then for your part, what you're gonna see related to that, they have, 2 shop doors that one faces, Jefferson, that they're changing out, because they're gonna do some outdoor seating on that side, and do a nice little wrought iron fence. And, so you're likely gonna see the fence, as a physical improvement that you'll just be looking at more for compatibility as opposed to historic integrity piece, but it'll just be as the design, compatible with the historic context of that building. And then I think that's a door replacement and some stuff as well, so you'll see the physical improvement to the building there. And then on the west side, on the parking lot side, where the vendors are, right now there's a big roll-up shop door, or kind of folding, I don't know how it goes up, but there's a door in it, in the shop door. And so
You
the
mean on
door,
the alley side? Sorry, I'm having a hard
well,
time.
no, so it's on the side facing the clinic.
The clinic,
Yeah.
okay,
The little parking lot side facing the clinic.
okay.
Anyway, there's some kind of shop door, it's in sections, so it goes up and breaks and folds. Anyway, somehow there's a door that does the same thing. Anyway, it's kind of interesting, but that's getting replaced anyway with a nice little entry door thing there. So you'll see both of those. Then other than that, I'm not really sure what other facade improvements are occurring, but if there are any, you'll see those too. But all the trailer space stuff out there, that won't come before you. That's just really you're looking at water sewer infrastructure in the ground, because if they follow my recommendation, they're gonna have full RV hookups there, so folks have water sewer and full power and all that stuff, which you have to have it to make all that work, so. Yeah, anyway.
Okay, and then my last item is the Restore Oregon has their call out for the 2025 Pets and Preservation Calendar, which is pets in front of notable places in Oregon. So if you know of anybody that has a cute pet, and they do any pet, they're looking for submissions. And Lego was Mr. February back in 2021 on the staircase that we do not have anymore, so.
Well, we all think we have cute pets.
Yes, I know, but like,
I really do that.
yeah.
Mine really is.
Even when we don't.
If anybody wants the link on that, I'll send it to you.
Nice.
Due August for submissions. That's all I got. Okay, well, anything else?